Chapter 22. She felt exhausted. Her chest was sore, vision blurred, ears ringing, the muscles in her arms and legs strained and tingling. Callie's arms were stretched upward, behind her, as if suspended by unseen strings. The pain at the ends and base of her twin tails was a new, unwelcome sensation. She felt as if the spongy, flexible muscle fiber within her tails was pulling away from the cartilage which bound it to the base of her spine. Both of her brown tails were fully extended, like wires pulled to the brink of snapping. The sheet of armor was snagged on something. The force of the impact had dislodged her arms from their sockets. "Lady Darkseid," Tyrell said frantically over her communicator, "answer me. Are you still there, Jax?" "Who's Jax?" Tyrell asked with a hint of relief in his voice. "Wait," Callie asked. "Where am I?" "I can't tell you much. The AVN field density is down to 30%. You need to get moving now, before the next cloud burst. You're hanging from a building strut. Watch out for acid on the way down." She tried to concentrate, but the agony was too great. She couldn't even manage enough focus to take the edge off of the pain. If the fabric hadn't been Zanral hide, things would have ended much differently. Luckily, the material was almost impossible to tear. However, that same quality could make freeing herself more difficult. "It hurts too much, I can't focus," Callie whined. "Listen carefully," Tyrell commanded. "I don't care how much pain you're in. If you don't get out of there, you're going to die. No more Pink Paradise, no more Toy Soldier, no more Lady Darkseid. Pull it together, I don't care how. Move, now." "I'm going to need your help," she muttered as her black tail unwrapped itself from around her waist, worked its way up her right arm, and began unfastening the straps that bound her to the cloth. She wailed in pain as the last strap gave way and the right side of her upper body swung free. Everything started going black. "No, don't give in," Tyrell said urgently. "Keep those eyes open." The steel strut which she was suspended from had shifted slightly. Her free tail sped around her, once below and once above her left shoulder, then up her arm. Her muscular tail pulled her body upward, releasing the strain on her shoulder. It constricted around her. She screamed as her arm was forced back into its socket. Her vision blurred until the pain began to subside. "I'm not ready," she whimpered as her tail began moving her other arm into position to repeat the process. The cloth slid away from the building as the metallic strut shifted again. "You can do this," a voice said over her communicator. In her state of semi-conscious delirium, it sounded like cyanide. "I believe in you." "Okay," Callie said as she tried to brace herself for the impending pain. Her free tail tightened around her. She cried out as her right arm was forced back into its socket with a sickening pop. The curses that escaped her lips echoed through the chasm. Her vision started to blur, then started going black. She struggled to remain conscious and steadied her breathing until her vision cleared. She swung her right arm up, clasped her hands together, and pulled herself up. Her shoulders were sore, and her muscles were raw, but she managed to hold herself up while her Blacktail unfastened the straps that anchored her other two tails to the fabric above. As the last strap holding her right tail in place was released, the fabric slid off of the strut. Callie fell the remaining 20 feet to a stone walkway leading to the side of the fractured building from which she'd been hanging. The air smelled foul. "What happened?" Callie gasped as she fought back tears and pain. "Once you got near the center of the cloud, you took one serious jolt. If it wasn't for your Talgradon leggings and that slurry, I doubt you'd have survived," Tyrell said. "You should send your armor a fruit basket or something to thank her." "I doubt a fruit basket is enough thanks for this one," Callie winced with pain. "By the powers, this hurts. You may want to mute the audio for a minute." She heard distant thunder from the acidic cloud far above. "I'll give you a moment," Tyrell said sympathetically. "Just don't take too long." She laid there wailing in agony until she was able to regain her composure. She undid the straps on her left arm, freeing herself from the fabric. She scowled as she looked down at the ruined sheet of Zanral hide, which she had once worn as an armored skirt. While the material was incredibly resistant to being pierced or cut, it hadn't held up well to being stretched beyond its limits. Abandoning a panel of the armor didn't sit well with her. It couldn't be replaced. The makeshift path on which she stood was little more than one of a row of stone slabs extending from one damaged building to the next. Stagnant pools of green fluid filled the area around the pathway. A fine yellow vapor hung in the air above the pools. With one exception, all of the damaged buildings were leaning outward toward the sheer walls surrounding the canyon floor. Callie looked at the dark entry to the one building that was tilted the wrong direction. It was one of the buildings connected by the mismatched walkway. She reached out with her mind to confirm her assumption. She could feel several consciousnesses hiding within the dark. The 10-story building seemed to sway slightly on its foundation. 3 sides of the building were still mostly intact, but one large corner at its base, toward the center of the chasm, had collapsed. Her brown tails wouldn't respond to her urging, so she picked them up and held them against her body as her black tail wrapped around her to hold them in place. The sound of thunder startled her. "Run," someone called out from within the ruined building. "The rain is coming." She sprinted to the opening. The foundation at the open corner of the building had sunk into the ground. She jumped over a pool of the green liquid and landed effortlessly inside the structure. It didn't all look safe, but she didn't have any other options. The building was leaning forward to an abrupt reversal of force as one of the main central supports had given way. The cause of that reversal was immediately apparent. The Kid Almamashin was hunched under the central support pillar, which had sheared away from its base and come to rest on his shoulder. The thick fur on his legs was soaked from sweat, the edges of his hooves were starting to splinter from the weight that was being exerted against the dense hide on his shoulders and upper back. And his bony breastplate separated slightly as his chest heaved with the effort of steadying the immense weight of the building. One of his forward curving horns had been broken. His facial features bore a vague resemblance to a Terran's, but his face was more elongated with sharp angular features. The Catalmi were the largest, and indisputably the strongest, of all the sentient races of Keralis. The immense gravitational forces on their homeworld could crush most landing craft, not to mention any crew on board. The physical strength of even the weakest Catalmide surpassed that of the strongest member of any other species. Even hunched over, he was more than twice her height, and easily 12 feet wide at the shoulders. "You don't look like you're doing so good," Callie commented. "How long have you been holding the building up?" "Not sure," he grunted. "Can't talk." "Do you think you can hold out a little longer?" Callie asked. "I can help, but I need time to rest and regenerate. I'm useless right now." "I must," it wheezed. "Others. Upstairs." She stepped out of the naturally lit entry toward the wide shadowy stairwell deeper within the crumbling structure. It was hard to make out the features of the building's interior, even after her eyes had adjusted. With the slight forward tilt of the building, walking up the stairs was a little awkward, and was made even stranger by the slight sway of the building. The stairs were both taller and deeper than she was accustomed to. They'd most likely been designed to accommodate larger species. Modern business construction utilized multiple stair sizes for the comfort of a wider variety of visitors. The city core which had been used here must have been of either an older design or one made specifically for one of the larger species. She struggled through the pain and gradually made it up the stairwell. Up on the second floor, there were 3 figures sitting near a lantern. "It looks like we have another survivor," a male-sounding voice said as she slowly approached. Thanks for the warning, Callie said. What warning? A female voice spoke this time. The warning about the rain, Callie said in confusion. Wasn't that one of you I heard? We were warning the twins, the male said with a chuckle. I'm glad you heard it. I thought we were the only ones. How did you manage to live this long? I didn't, Callie said sadly. I came down to look for survivors and got a nasty jolt for my troubles. So, the rescuer needs rescuing now, the female clucked. One of the survivors was a male who looked to be of sub-Terran stock. The female was a representative of an avian race. The only avian race she was familiar with were the Erinarax, who had smallish hands at the end of wings that were sufficient for gliding but not capable of actual flight. This woman's arms were independent of her wings, and her beak was straight, unlike the hooked hawk-like beaks the Erinarax were known for. The third was a Loctarian, who evolved from insects resembling locusts. They were bipeds slightly smaller than Terrans, with 4 slender arms, broad triangular heads, and large compound eyes. The lantern was resting in the middle of a seating area. All of the furniture had been arranged to face inward toward the light. I need some rest, Callie admitted. My descent didn't go as planned, to say the least, but after I've had some time to regenerate, I should be able to get all of us out of here. The dark-feathered avian squawked with laughter. Well, I'm skeptical. Nice to meet you, skeptical, Callie snickered. May I ask the rest of you your names? My name is Gauri, she answered angrily. The male looked at the Loctarian and waited for it to answer. I Jakadiiktnikt, the insect responded. The Terran hybrid smiled. Just call him Jake. His translator's not working. The Loctarian nodded. Jake it is, Callie said with relief. I was worried I was going to be asked to pronounce it properly. Jake let out a strange chittering noise that sounded more like laughter than speech. What about you, Terran? Callie asked. Well, I'm not actually Terran, he said with a crooked grin, but we can discuss that later. My name is Syntholo, and I'm a scout from the Kailani Dominion. One of the Alliance member groups put in a purchase request for one of our mobile industrial complexes. I was sent here to scout the system for viability before entering into negotiations. I had just landed at the shuttle port when this whole mess started. I tried to get away but didn't get far. I crashed into the building, just 2 floors up from here. Did he get any information on the weapon? Tyrell asked her over the communications link. What's taking them so long? The feathers on Gauri's crest rose slightly as she spoke. I smell the rain. The Loctarian said something incomprehensible, but his urgency was obvious. The building trembled as thunder sounded through the canyon. Syntholo rushed over and leaned over the balcony, cupped his hands around his mouth, and yelled. You're out of time. Find cover fast. Syntholo, Callie said, my cyberpath wants to know if you managed to get any information on the weapon. I'd have to get back to my ship, if it's still in orbit, Syntholo considered. I did receive a notification that an unknown vessel had entered the system, fired off a probe, and left. I wish I could tell you more, but the information relayed to my shuttle is limited. They launched a probe, Tyrell said thoughtfully. Does he know who sent the ship? Did the probe detonate, or might it still be operating? Would it be possible? Please hold, Callie said irritably. She took the communicator out of her ear and held it out to Syntholo. Would you mind talking to him? He chuckled softly as he took the earpiece from her. Don't you like being stuck in the middle? Syntholo snickered. Sometimes I feel like I'm in the middle of everything, Callie grumbled. I'm tired of it. He inserted the communicator into his ear. This is Syntholo of the Kailani Dominion. How can I assist you? He walked away from the rest of them as he continued his conversation with Tyrell. "It's a shame your translator isn't working," Callie said to the Loctarian. "I've never met a Loctarian before." The insect bobbed its head slightly and made a clicking noise, and Gowrie squawked. "Is there a problem?" Callie glared at the avian woman. She could hear a faint sizzling sound as the acidic rain began flowing down the side of the building. It was a torrential downpour without being preceded by a single stray warning droplet. "Where should I start?" Gowrie clucked as she shifted her head back a few inches. "You've already shown me that you're self-centered, which is no surprise from a Terran child, but your arrogance is unequaled. You, here to rescue us? If it was really that simple, we would have gotten ourselves out long before now. The Ketal downstairs is the only thing that's saved us so far. I suspect he won't be able to keep this up much longer. Luckily, the outer walls are made from borosilicate glass, so we don't have to worry about the acid getting in here, but the foundation is slowly corroding underneath us. I couldn't even fly out of here because of that damn cloud." She spread her wings. Her left wing had been seared off halfway down its length. "Not even Mystrionics can heal that," she said sadly. "You may think you're here to save us, but you've just come to offer us false hope and die alongside us." "I can and will save as many of you as I can," Callie snapped. "As many as you can," Gowrie warbled. "I suppose 0 is still a number. Just who do you think you are, vain child?" "They call me Lady Darkseid," Callie said in a defiant tone. "You say that like it should mean something to me," Gowrie snarled. The Loctarian said something. The avian woman turned to him. "What was that?" The insect repeated itself. "Really?" the woman said with mock enthusiasm. "A legendary name, is it? Wonderful. We're to be saved by a name, and just how is a combination of letters going to get us out of this situation? I know, we'll just lean an exclamation mark against the side of this death pit and climb right out." The insect spoke again. "Well then, Lady Danksteed," Gowrie scoffed, "please enlighten us. How are you intending to rescue us? Do you even have a plan?" "Darkseid," Callie corrected her forcefully. Gowrie tilted her head to one side and stared at her. "No answer?" "I had a few ideas," Callie said with a smile, "but I think I like your plan better. I just hope we have enough of that acid-proof glass." The building began to sway ominously. Callie turned and rushed down the stairs. Her muscles still ached, but her passive Kobe-tomed regeneration had already taken the edge off of the pain. The Kid Almamashan's strength was nearing his limit. Tears of pain were flowing down his face, and a puddle of blood was forming around his hooves. His right arm hung limp, the shoulder which had been supporting the central pillar was lower than it had been before, and he was struggling to steady it with his left arm and the side of his head. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "Not today," Callie said adamantly as she reached out to the elements. She struggled to push beyond her own pain and felt the steely floor sluggishly responding to her call. The metal inched upward, forming 4 thick columns near him to supplant the central support. Her ability to control the elements threatened to slip from her grasp. The iron pillars groaned as they caught the building, but they held fast as the central pillar drove the Kid Almamashan into the floor. If she hadn't been hurt. Had she been at full strength? If only she'd had a little more time to recuperate. A final shuddering breath escaped his lips as Callie lost consciousness from exhaustion. She laid on the floor for some time before she woke. "I'm sorry," Callie sobbed as she walked over and rested her hand against the side of his face. "I didn't even ask your name. You were so strong, so selfless, so brave. I'm sorry I didn't get here in time, but at least the others are safe now. I wish I asked you your name. You won't be forgotten." As she wiped the tears from her eyes, she realized he was smiling. Her tails fell to the floor and trailed limply behind her as she walked back up the stairs. It might have been nice if you thought of that earlier, Gauri mocked as Callie reached the top of the stairwell. I said I needed rest, Callie said angrily. If I could have done that earlier, I would have. I'm not in the mood right now. Your incompetence has only killed one of us, so far, Gauri jeered, so I guess I should be thankful for that at least. Searing balls of fire formed in Callie's hands as she spoke. One more word and there will be another corpse in here. Go ahead. Just one more word out of you, and I'll be eating fried chicken for dinner. Do you understand me, you yammering old crow? That's racist, the avian woman said as she crossed her arms. What? Callie said in surprise. Really? Actually, Syntholo said as he rushed toward them, it is. Callie dispelled the flaming spheres by clenching and releasing her fists. Which part? The fried chicken, or the second part, Syntholo interrupted urgently. Her ancestors were hunters, equipping her people to scavenger birds is seen as highly insulting. So, equating them to domesticated livestock isn't? Callie said in surprise. No more than comparing you to a. Gauri began, then paused. Wait a minute, are those tails? Yes, Callie said. The avian woman glanced at Syntholo. So, are you like him? She's not a Laika, he said. I honestly don't know what she is. We always know our own, and she's definitely not one of us. I can distinguish over 100 different species by their scent alone. Her aroma is confusing. Callie's eyes widened as she observed Gauri's reaction. Oh, that's what this is really about. All three of them expressed their confusion in their own ways. Please ignore that, Callie said apologetically and then thought to Gauri, I have no romantic interest in Syntholo. We're not rivals. There's no reason to treat me like one. Gauri lowered her head in obvious embarrassment. Callie couldn't help but wonder if their physiologies were at all compatible. Being like a Syntholo most likely already had a bestial secondary form. It's completely possible he could be very similar in appearance to the woman in his alternate, shapeshifted, form. Granted, that didn't mean they could. Callie shook her head, desperately trying to dislodge the mental image from her mind. If you're done talking with Tyrell, Callie said with a smile as she held out her hand. Sorry, Syntholo said sheepishly as he handed her the earpiece. With all the commotion, I forgot about it. She put the communicator back in her ear. Do you have any news for me? Callie asked. Preferably of the good variety. I like him, Tyrell said over the communications link. He's very professional. Unlike someone I know. Just give me the update, Callie scolded. Give me a few more minutes while I check some things on my end, then I can give you a more comprehensive report, Tyrell said. It sounds like some of his professionalism may have rubbed off on you, she teased. Why would it? Tyrell scoffed. I'm retired. Why would I waste my time on formalities? That's more like it, Callie chuckled softly. Not quite a laugh, Tyrell said, but it's a start. Have to keep the boss lady just sane enough that she doesn't forget about our deal. Callie moved her tails out of her way and plopped down on one of the large comfy chairs. Syntholo wrapped an electronic band around his head and motioned with his hands as he manipulated an unseen computer interface. The Loctarian spent some time cleaning his pistols. Gauri walked back and forth by the window looking for someone or something. Lady Darkseid, Tyrell said over the communications link, we need to talk, privately. Deactivate the AVN cloud, and find someplace where we can have some privacy. Callie stood up and walked over toward a hallway leading deeper into the building. She conjured up a small flame to light her way and hit the button next to her scabbard to deactivate the cloud of recording nanites. She opened the first door she came across and stepped inside. "Okay," Callie said as she closed the door behind her. "I'm alone now. What's the situation?" Syntholo was generous enough to give me his ship registration number and computer core password. "I did promise to only access the data logs related to the attack," Tyrell said. "Did you keep your word?" "Not exactly, but I'll get to that," he continued. His ship managed to get great telemetry on the probe from the moment it was deployed. Not only that, but his ship has been monitoring the storm since it began. That tiny little ship of his has better scanners than we do. This thing is overdue for some serious upgrades. I could make a list. Callie smirked. "Can we save the complaints for later?" "It's essentially a normal probe, technologically speaking. Behaviorally, it's something else entirely. It simply isn't capable of making that storm or doing this sort of damage. My only guess would be some sort of Mystrionics-enhanced technology." "Elemental magic administered by a probe?" Callie asked. "Wouldn't that require Mystrium?" "How would I know?" Tyrell scoffed. "But it is an interesting question. Our ship scanners can't detect Mystrium, but Syntholos should be able to. I'll just slip back into his computer core and run another scan of the cloud." "When I left him, he was accessing his computer. You could just ask." "True," Tyrell sounded irritated, "but that's not as fun. Give me a few seconds while I ask permission. The least you could do is let me enjoy my retirement a little." "I don't remember that being part of our deal." "It is now." "What did Syntholo say?" Callie asked. "The scan was positive." "Good catch. He's given me access to a stack of research files. Apparently, he was sent to some moon that a substantial chunk of Mystrium crashed into a while back. Inhabited too, based on the report. Some new species. Could they be useful?" "His report indicates they're not ready for contact. He declared them too uncivilized. It says here that their burial rites involve urinating on the dead." "That's a new one," Callie chuckled. "Is there anything useful in the reports?" "It says here that the lunar atmosphere superheated the Mystrium on entry. It sounds like it opened a rift, and a few hundred dredge made it through before they could close it. If there was a way to direct where the portal opens, that cloud could be linking this planet to the interior of some gas giant somewhere else in the universe. The question is," Callie mused, "if it is some kind of rift, how do we close it?" "The one on that moon closed after they blasted off a chunk of the Mystrium that formed it," Tyrell noted. "Sounds good. Let's try it." "Sure," Tyrell mocked. "Just tell me how in the powers you expect me to do that. It's not a rock like the one in this report. It's a damn cloud of the stuff. I don't know how to deal with this." "I wouldn't even know where to start looking for that kind of information," Tyrell admitted. "Cyan has dealt with rifts before," Callie grumbled. "I wish I could ask her, but she should still be in jump space." "I'll see what I can do," Tyrell said, then added. "How do you feel about a three-way?" "What?" Callie asked incredulously. "Not you," Tyrell said dismissively. "Would disrupting the arrangement of Mystrium particles in the cloud with a missile close it?" Tyrell asked. "How would I know?" Callie grumbled. "Why are you asking me?" "If it is a rift, firing a rocket into it would be pointless," Cyanide said through her earpiece. "It would just blow up on the other side. You need to disrupt the pattern on this side." "Cyan," Callie said excitedly. "I'm not happy with you right now," Cyanide said dourly. I'll see if I can help you resolve this now, and I'll deal with you later, princess. This is all hypothetical, but if you heat it to at least 3,000 degrees, I think that should prime it for opening a new portal, which should override its current destination. Can you do it? I just got my ability to manipulate fire back yesterday. I can't generate enough heat yet. Then you'll just have to wait it out, Cyan said. Just keep checking the particle density until it drops to around 10% of the initial Mystrium yield of the device, then the rift will collapse on its own. The Black Church controls most of the Mystrium supplies, so I'm guessing the ship that launched the probe was one of theirs, Tyrell commented. Sorry, Cyan said swiftly, we're next in line to head through the Starlink, so I'll be losing my signal any second. Mystrium deposits can be found in deep space, so it could be anyone with knowledge of the ritual. I'll try to look into it when I'm able. Until then, don't do anything reckless. Don't forget our deal, Pinky, Tyrell jeered. Fuck off, Cyan snarled. You'll be lucky if I don't feed you your own entrails for making me bribe you to get you to. Tyrell chuckled softly. Connection lost. Not a very enjoyable three-way. What was she talking about? Callie asked. I'm running a search now to see if I can find any records of a ship matching its physical configuration. The whole shape isn't on file. So, it's a custom build or prototype, Tyrell said. That's good news for us. We just have to track sightings. Are you avoiding my question? Certainly not, Tyrell mocked. I'm ignoring you completely. Once the rain stops, I'm going to try and find a way out of here. I'm just worried about the lightning once we get close to that cloud, Callie said in annoyance. No, you're not, Tyrell snapped. You're going to wait until I get a chance to access Syntholo's ship systems, check the current field density using his sensor array, and compare it against the initial scan result. First you ignore me and then you tell me what I can and can't do? Who works for whom? Kayla sneered. I warned you, and you didn't listen. I was trying to protect you from yourself, and I still am. There was an odd hint of sadness hidden under the rage in his voice. If you didn't rush off like that, you might have been able to save that Ketal. I know that, Callie shrieked. I can't control every unintended consequence. Just come up with a way to disrupt that cloud, and find me that ship. Don't talk to me like that again, Tyrell said in a firm and stony tone. You hired me to do a job, not to be yelled at. I know you're used to people that are willing to bow and scrape, but don't for a minute think I'm one of them. I know you're not, Callie said softly. That's why I hired you. I'd rather surround myself with people that aren't afraid to tell me when I'm wrong. How about listening more and yelling less when someone does? Tyrell scoffed. I wasn't blaming you for what happened here. That's not something to carry on your back. I'm holding you responsible for your actions and how they affect others. I'll keep that in mind, Callie said sheepishly. Now that you seem a little more reasonable, Tyrell said, I'll see what I can do about tracking that craft for you, but this little ship of yours wouldn't stand a chance against it in a firefight. We have the advantage of speed and cloaking, but that's not enough. Even if we caught them with all their defenses down, I doubt we'd be able to penetrate their armor. When I do find them, and I will, you'd be better off sending some people you trust after them. That's the problem, Callie said with a sigh. There are plenty of people that want to impress me, and even more that want to use me, but people that I can trust? I'm not sure I have any of those. There was silence on the other end of the line. Tyrell? Callie asked. Is everything all right up there? Once you get back up here, Tyrell said softly, I'd like to renegotiate our contract. Is something wrong with the one we have? Yes, he sighed. It seems my conscience didn't retire at the same time that I did. What's that supposed to mean? Don't worry about it, he chuckled softly. Let's just get you back up here safely. I've got a lot of work to do. I'm going to discuss the situation with Syntholo while there's still some time to spare. I have the feeling things are going to get busy down there once the rain stops. Do you have any idea when that will be? Less than a day. I need more data before I can answer that, Tyrell said. I'll check back with you after I talk to Syntholo. Tyrell disconnected. She left the conference room and headed back to the second-floor landing where the others were still trying to keep themselves busy while they waited for the rain to end. Callie made her way over to one of the large, comfortable chairs, curled up, closed her eyes, and rested while listening to the rain. The sound of raised voices roused her from her slumber. She opened her eyes and glanced around the room. The rain had ended, and she could hear the thumping of heavy feet running up the stairs. Callie yawned and asked, "What's going on?" "Did you fall asleep again?" Tyrell laughed through her earpiece. "I was napping," Callie grumbled. "Kids today are so lazy," he teased. "Jump to your death, sleep for a few minutes. Prevent a building from falling over, take a nap." "Unconsciousness isn't sleeping," Callie snickered. A pair of Zog-Alteam ran onto the landing. They must be the twins the others had mentioned. It was unusual to see their species on temperate planets. They're hot-blooded reptiles with dense white fur and black scaly hands, feet, and heads. They traditionally colonize planets that are far too cold to accommodate other life forms. The Zog-Alteam were known for laying out on glaciers to reduce their body temperatures, much like cold-blooded reptiles sun themselves to raise theirs. A fully grown Zog-Alteam stands around 7 feet tall and 4 feet wide. The twins were less than 6 feet tall and only about 3 feet wide. They were most likely adolescents. "Isn't it a little warm on this planet for you too?" Callie asked. "We have mutant powers," one of the twins said with a chuckle. His brother hit him with the back of his fist. "We have a rare genetic condition that prevents blubber production." "It runs in our family," the first brother said sadly. "We can't live among our own kind." Callie narrowed her eyes so she could see their energy flow. Even with their genetic mutation, the planet should still be far too hot for their species' unique physiology. Each of the brothers was using a different passive ability to protect themselves from the heat. They tilted their large reptilian heads and regarded her with confusion. "What are your names?" Callie asked with a broad smile. "I'm Ziku," the first brother answered. "And I'm Yari," the second brother replied. "It's nice to meet both of you," Callie asked. "Where did you kids get your training?" The brothers looked at each other and shifted their weight uncomfortably. "Please, allow me to introduce myself," Callie said with a grin. "I'm Lady Darkseid, and my eyes are special. I can see power." Yari looks red, so he's using Kobitomj to resist the heat, and Ziku is using Mystrionyx, which looks green, to modulate his core temperature. "Our parents," one of the brothers said sadly. "Interesting," Syntholo interjected. "Do you know what my talent is?" "Dark purple," Callie said with a shrug. "It's a color I'm not familiar with." "I didn't expect you to know," Syntholo said with a sly grin. "I may tell you later, once we all get out of here." Callie couldn't touch his mind telepathically. It wasn't like Kiryu, who was immune to telepathy. It was as if her thoughts slid right off of his mind. The building trembled. "The rift is closing," Tyrell said over the link. "Once it closes completely, I'll send down the shuttle to pick everyone up." "I was going to raise up a walkway all the way to the ledge and encase it with glass just in case it rains again." "You ruin all my fun," Callie teased. "Does that mean you don't want me to send the shuttle?" Tyrell mocked. "No," Callie said with an exaggerated sigh. "Just send the shuttle. It'll be quicker." Be sure not to forget to pick up the mauler on the way back to the ship. Tyrell said thoughtfully, lucky for us those Zogel aren't fully grown. I'm going to reduce the temperature in the docking bay for them. I can't get individual rooms cold enough to make them comfortable. I hate to say it, but I'm glad we don't have to make accommodations for them and the Ketal. Poor noble bastard. They probably would have been around 20 feet tall if they were able to stand up straight, Callie said sadly. There are so few of them out there. I wish I... Stop kicking yourself, I need your help, Tyrell interrupted. Prepare someplace to land. Callie headed downstairs, knelt down, placed her palms on the floor, and focused her will. She raised the ground between her and the front door, shot water from her hands to wash the acid off of the stone, then summoned the winds to dry the walkway. She continued over to the door and repeated the process with a larger slab of stone, creating a landing pad just outside the exit. Is that big enough? Callie said proudly. I guess it will have to do, Tyrell teased. Get moving, the shuttle's on its way, Callie yelled. Hey, Tyrell snapped, next time you yell like that, at least warn me first so I can adjust the volume on my end. Sorry, Callie blushed. The AVN is still offline, Tyrell commented. Did you want to record your escape? I don't see the point. I may turn them back on once I head over to the base. We know what happened, but I want to understand why it happened. The rest of the group assembled by the doors and waited for the shuttle. There was a pod launched just before the attack. Is there any way we can find out who is on that pod? Callie asked. The shuttle came to rest on the makeshift landing pad. There could be something in the log files at the base, but I doubt it. They all filed into the back of the shuttle, through the empty mauler dock, and through the door leading into the crew area. Callie entered the cockpit and sealed the door behind herself. She sat back and relaxed while Tyrell piloted the vessel remotely. So, Lady Darkseid. Tyrell began. I'm tired of that name, Callie said softly. You said you were called Kivaza. Would you prefer if I call you by that name? He asked. No, she said softly, then sat quietly as they landed and the mauler was remotely driven into the dock. Are you all right, kid? He asked. No, I don't think I am. I was put in the middle of this mess, and I don't like it. Can we just drop everyone off at Hyrule and be done with it? The shuttle blasted off on its return trip to the Regicide one. We need to get Syntholo back to his ship, but we could just drop the others off. They could just catch a flight from there, but then what? He asked. I enjoyed your little speech earlier. It's a shame they were just empty words. The entire universe is tearing itself apart at the seams, and somehow you ended up at the center of the storm. I don't know who gave you that name, but with it comes an insane amount of influence. You could do a lot more than just make good on those threats. You could completely change the trajectory of the future, or just run away and wait for the war to find you. I think it already has, Callie said. She looked out of the view screen, down at the ruins below. Everything seemed to become engulfed in flame as the shuttle began to exit the atmosphere. It looked as if the entire universe was burning. It sometimes amused her how easily a slight shift in perspective could either mislead or enlighten. She wondered what the primitive tribe Syntholo had written about would think if they had been able to witness such a sight. Maybe our perceptions have been twisted by our expectations, Callie mused. That's just a side effect of the terraforming process. The shuttle engines are igniting atmospheric gases, Tyrell explained. The shuttle began its docking approach. She could feel a faint rumble passing through the landing craft as they pulled into the shuttle bay and landed. The ship trembled as the bay door closed behind them. Callie opened the cockpit door and spun around to face her passengers. The doors will open once we've pressurized the shuttle bay. She turned her attention to Syntholo. Once I bring the others upstairs, we can see about getting you back to your ship. About that, Syntholo said as he scratched the side of his head. My ship only comes equipped with one lander. I'll have to report back to the Kailani Dominion to get a replacement. We should just scuttle the old ship before we head out. She held her hand up next to her ear to indicate she wasn't talking to them. Did you get that? Send him to the bridge while you get the others settled, Tyrell said over the interior speakers. If he's planning on scrapping it, I'd rather try to salvage some of his equipment. I'd have to consult my government, Syntholo said. It would depend on which systems you're hoping to salvage. I doubt they'd agree to weapon or defensive systems. Actually, Tyrell said, I was thinking about cannibalizing your ship to upgrade our sensors. If we ever come across another one of those weapons, I'd like to see it coming. We can discuss it once I'm on the bridge, Syntholo said. I don't like to negotiate with anyone unless I can look them in the eyes. You do know that one of the Alliance generals is a Gyran, Callie chuckled. I said I don't like it, Syntholo teased, not that I refuse to do it. The side door opened. Everyone come with me, Callie said as she walked down the short ramp. We'll set you up with your own quarters. She led them over onto the elevator. I'm sorry, but you'll all be restricted to the main level until we reach Port Liberty. Where you go from there is your own business. As they sped to the main crew floor, the twins shifted uneasily. What's wrong? Callie asked. She studied the way the Zogal team shifted their bodies from side to side. Something about their movements reminded her of the way the Rashrai had communicated. I'm so sorry, Callie said with sudden realization. You're orphans. You don't have anywhere to go. When we get back to Hyrule, you can stay with me if you want, at least until we find out if you have any relatives you could. They swayed from side to side, clenching and relaxing their long, clawed fingers. Their heads swayed from side to side as they lowered their bodies slightly and wiggled their toes. Your family was exiled, Callie said sadly, because you're different. They lowered their heads. I know what it's like to be different, Callie said as her tails stirred restlessly. Are you using some kind of telepathy? Gowry asked. I can read their body language, Callie said with a shrug. Can you read Jake's movements? Callie shook her head. No, just the twins. Don't ask me why. I wouldn't be able to explain it. The doors opened, and Callie led them out of the elevator. Syntholo stayed behind. If you don't mind, Syntholo said, I'm going to check with your friend upstairs. I really need to report in with the Dominion. Suit yourself, Callie said dismissively. Tyrell, Syntholo's ready to come up. The elevator door closed. Callie led the others down the hallway and showed them where they'd be staying. Gowry insisted on being shown to her room last. What's next? Gowry asked once they were alone. Back to the surface to explore the intelligence base. After I get back, we're going to return to Hyrule. I'll drop you off at the starport, and you can make your own way from there. That's not what I meant, the avian woman scoffed. I had friends on that planet and watched them all die. Do you think I'm going to just let you drop me off, ship me home, and not offer me revenge? For thousands of years, we have hunted our prey, we them through the darkness between, and emerged in this place you call Keralis. We do not rest, we do not tire. We drove out our old prey, the creatures which were known here as Kalmians. Now I am attacked by a new enemy and you expect me to just go home? Wait a minute, Callie said in surprise. I knew that the Kalmians disappeared. Are you saying your people did that? Yes, Gowry said with a savage cruelty in her eyes. Some of my people are able to banish those that do not belong. Callie used her telepathy to help the woman visualize the meanings behind her words as she spoke. When you said the darkness between, were you talking about the void between worlds, where the Rashrai live? Gowri's eyes widened. You've seen them? Callie nodded solemnly. So that's how you were able to understand the twins, Gowri whispered. I ask you again, what comes next? Callie grinned as she spoke. I've been mostly a spectator up to this point, but if they want to drag me into their war. There's a saying among my people, Gowri interrupted. Why just sit on a branch feeling the wind pass you by when you can spread your wings and fly? Callie smiled. In other words, I should let myself be swept away by the currents of the winds of change? Never. We sculpt the winds with every flap of our wings, bending it to our will. We didn't ask for this fight, but that won't diminish the enjoyment of gnawing on their bones once it's done.